Welcome to episode 71 of the Hoopsfix podcast with me, your host, Sam Nita, full-time British basketball advocate. And on this week's show, we have a face of a BBL franchise. It is none other than Tayo Ogedengbe, the face of the Surrey Scorchers. And as you'll hear in this episode, he does more than just play for the team. His role goes beyond that, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to have him on the show. He's obviously made his debut in the BBL back in 2007, so he's kind of seen maybe the bit more of the darker days through until now, where I'd say things are in a lot better position. And having done that full decade plus of years of service in the league, he's got a unique perspective. And so I really enjoyed kind of going into all of this stuff with him. Not only that, me and him go way back. One of the few players that's still playing at a high level that I actually played with back in the day, which you'll hear a little bit about on the show. So it was good to take a little trip down memory lane. Anyway, before we get into the show, please check out our Patreon account, patreon.com/HOOPSFIX. There you can sign up to give us a monthly contribution of as much or as little as you would like. That would help us do the work that we're doing. We cannot do it without your support. Please go and check it out, patreon.com/Hoopsfix. As always, if you want to hit me up, if you want to give me feedback, drop me an email, sam@hoopsfix.com, or you can reach me on every single social media platform at Hoopsfix. I look forward to hearing from you. Let me know what you think. And I think that is it. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below. As always, let's get some conversation going. Here is this week's show with me and Tayo Ogedengbe. Tayo, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
So, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. Obviously, it's a bit of a crazy time at the moment. And I think my angle for this whole thing is kind of talking about being the face of the franchise. You know, I noticed, obviously I hit you up on WhatsApp before we arranged this and asked you to email me over some things. And as you emailed me, I noticed your email address is Surrey University email address, surrey.ac.uk. You've got Surrey Scorchers brand ambassador. Like, what you are to the Surrey Scorchers, I think, is a little bit more than just a player, so to speak. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to kind of hear, if you were to talk about your role with the Scorchers, obviously first and foremost as a basketball player, but I guess if you were to encompass everything else that you're doing and that you do for the club, what would you say?
It's hard because there's not a set title for the stuff I do. My hands are in a lot of departments across the board at the Scorchers and at the University of Surrey. So it's hard. That's why I got to a point after a couple of years and I was like, guys, I'm setting up my email address. Like, what do I put? Because everyone's got a title. What do I put at the bottom? And we just came to the ambassador role because there wasn't a certain place you could put me in because I do so many things over there. And it all just basically started with me signing there. The first year I signed there, I basically marketed myself as more than a player because I didn't want to go there and be like, look, guys, just because I was looking at longevity. So I didn't want to just go there and be like, look, guys, it's Tayo, I can play, and that's it. So I thought, let me just offer my whole self and everything I can do and the knowledge I've got from playing here and playing there and being around British basketball for so long. And that's kind of how it came about. So I'm kind of like, the way I look at it is I'm a player. So I give a player's perspective on any decisions that need to be made. So whether it comes, I've done so many things where it comes to kit, where it comes to sponsors, where it comes to coaching, I've done so many things. But if they need a player's perspective on it, I'm the first line that they will come to. Whereas other teams, normally most decisions is made from the coach to the GM to the owners. I'm lucky at Scorchers that I've got a voice. The players have got a voice through me as well. So hardly any decisions go without either me knowing about what's going on or them crossing it by me. And you got to remember, at the time when we started, like, it was a change of ownership. It was a brand new franchise. We had lost the old owners, so there wasn't there, I wouldn't say there wasn't the knowledge, but we were making mistakes as we went along. So my input was kind of valuable into, okay, I've been here and we do this here, and I've been there and we do that here like this. So we kind of figured it on as we go along. And now, as I'm more into my role, I just find myself getting into different things and doing different things. And as I'm coming towards the end of my career as well, it's really good for me because now I can move into different areas of the business, of the university, and of the sports park as well. So it's been pretty handy for me.
So obviously this iteration of the franchise, the Surrey Scorchers era, began 2015, 16. When you first signed, like you just said, you tried to pitch yourself on I guess being the face of the franchise, and I think it was kind of made clear when you did sign that this was the intention was being a long-term thing. What was the conversations on the side from the sort of the management to you? Like, did you envisage it being what it is now? Do you think it's become more than what you originally expected? Like, kind of how has it all played out?
I mean, I never really saw it play out in any particular way, if that makes sense. I just knew that I wanted to be involved more than just showing up at practice and showing up on game day. So I didn't really know how that would work. So I've got to give a lot of credit to Creon, my coach, and to Gavin Baker, the GM, because they really put me in position to give my advice and to use my experience in a good way. So I didn't really envision it as in myself having lots of different roles. I just envisioned myself being more than a player. And at the time, I didn't really know what that involved. But as time went on and things were happening, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I know how that works. This is what, do you know what I mean? And things just happened and it just trickled on. And I just found myself slotting into a few different roles and doing a few more different things. And I just kind of knew, because at the time I had a good relationship with the GM Gavin Baker at the time. And what was happening is at the time my wife was playing for their netball affiliate, which is Surrey Storm. So I would come home in the summer after playing in France or after being at London or after being at Glasgow, and I'd come home in the summer and there would be stuff going on, like netball game stuff, and so I'd show up with my wife to watch, and I'd see him and he'd be like, oh, how's things going? And I'll break down my season, or it'll be at Christmas and I'll break down my season and what things that are going on. So we kept a really good rapport. So we kept a really good relationship during all that time. So it kind of got to figure out who I am, and that we took that on into leading into signing me and leading into giving myself a role. So through that relationship, he kind of knew the person I was and the vision that I kind of had for basketball as well. And that helped a lot in the direction of the role that I took.
You're what, 33 now?
Yeah, 33.
How many years do you think you've got left playing? Do you think you're going to go as long as you can and potentially be another Charles Smith and go to 40 or whatever, or kind of have you got one eye on the end at the moment?
It's a hard question because I've been thinking about that for probably about the last maybe 4 years, and I'm waiting for my body to tell me, okay, all right, this is getting harder. This is not. I mean, and to be honest, I haven't got to that point yet. So when my body gives me the indicators that, okay, I'm not keeping up with the fresh talent that's coming in, or I'm having a decline in my statistics or something like that, I think that's when I'll be ready to take a step away. But I feel like I've been pretty consistent for the last few years in what I've been doing, and it hasn't yet taken a dip. So I think as long as I keep doing that, and at the point where it gets to be too much or too hard, I think that's when I'm gonna take a step away.
When it does come to hanging your boots up and thinking about what's next, you've already spoken about sort of having an interest in doing things outside of just playing. do you see yourself going into, the front office or the sort of the off-court side of things, whether it be with Surrey or a different franchise? Do you want to stay involved with basketball? Is it coaching? Or is it something completely different? Like, kind of I think one of the interesting things, for a player such as you, who's been in the UK for such a large part of their career, in a way that a lot of other players that go abroad don't, you've had a chance to kind of lay some foundations and have much more stability potentially for when you do decide to stop playing. It's not like you're coming home to nothing, which is, I think a situation that a lot of players end up finding themselves in. So kind of, what are you thinking about doing when that time comes?
Again, I'm in a lucky situation, like you said. I've got my GM he's always on my case. He's always like, so Tayo, what are we doing? Like, what areas of the business can I help you get training with? What areas of the business can I push you towards to kind of make that transition easier for you? So I'm very lucky in that kind of term that they're willing to make this journey easier for me as well. I haven't yet pinpointed anything specific that I definitely want to do this. At the moment, I'm in kind of like a good phase where I'm playing with different things, and I'm waiting for something to grab me, and then I'm going to fully take it on when the time is right and fully take it on. I 100% would love to stay in the business of basketball and the business of the Scorchers, because I've still got a passion for it. So I feel like that the passion for playing can transfer over to whatever I do, if it's in the office or behind the scenes. I feel like that can transfer over because I'm emotionally attached to it as well. I feel like it will be a good transition. But then saying that, there's other areas that have opened up, like you said, because I have been in the UK so long. I've met different people. I've met CEOs of different companies. So I've met a lot of people that I've kept in contact with. So I have a lot of people I can reach out to when I finish to try and connect these dots once I retire.
Do you feel like, I mean, you've obviously your first season in the BBL was 2007, 2008, and you've seen, I guess, some of the darker days of the league.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, I remember 2009-ish, 2010 when I sort of first started covering it from a media standpoint. And, when you look at where the BBL was then compared to now, it's just like worlds apart. And as much as the BBL still does get, obviously, a lot of criticism, I think that it's clear for anyone that's sort of been around that there has been progress in a lot of areas. And, of course, there's still work to do. But, from your perspective, we've seen over the last few years a lot more British guys, coming home. Do you feel like that perception of the domestic league has started to change, and there are more guys choosing to play at home? Like I feel like before there's been numerous situations in the past where people have chosen to go abroad, even though they're earning less money, just because they refuse to play in the BBL, and they don't. It's that sort of the stigma that it had, where I kind of feel like that might be starting to change, and guys are starting to realise actually you can earn, in many cases, for where guys would be signing abroad, more money in the BBL, and you get to play back home. There are obviously advantages to playing back home, as we've just spoken about. And as someone, like yourself, who's spent a lot of time here, like, I'll be interested to kind of hear your take on that whole sort of situation.
Like you said, like it's been a journey playing in the BBL for so long. I've seen teams come, teams go, money come, money go. So some parts have been rough, but some parts have been good as well. Like I've seen teams get built up to. It's teams like Leicester, the way they've built themselves up now to the pinnacle they're at now. Like it's really good. Newcastle being able to sustain such a high level of what they're doing on and off the court, so it's good. And both teams have got the arenas now. And if you had asked me my first year, would some of the teams have their own arena, I probably would have laughed, just out of disbelief and out of being so young and coming into a league like that. I probably would have laughed. But I do feel like there was that stigma there, like you said. There was that stigma of our league just not being what it should be, people not getting paid the right amounts, and you'd hear stories of people just not getting paid or bad accommodation. You'd hear all these stories. But I think as time has gone on, I think there's been a standard, and I think the majority of teams are holding that standard quite high. So I think it has got better. The level of players coming in is consistently getting better. We're getting good D1 players, and now the British guys are considering playing in the BBL. Not all of them have. I wouldn't say they've all come home, but a lot more of them are considering playing in the BBL. And I think it's had a trickle down effect. You get one guy that comes and is successful and lays the map down, and other people are like, oh, okay, can I find a team that can offer me a good situation? And then it trickles down, more people come and it fills in. And I do think if you are a player, when I do have this conversation with people, and I do think if you are a player and you are realistic about playing basketball and you can find the right situation, I do think the BBL should be a viable option for you. I just don't think everybody should just be like, okay, I'm going to go play in Europe in a lower league and take hundreds, when you can come and play in the BBL and get more than that and build a base for yourself and have outlets for the future as well. So it's difficult because everyone's situation is different. Everyone's skill and talent level is different. So different things fit in different places. But I do think that it's becoming more of a option for people to play in the BBL, especially high level British talent as well.
You're talking about areas that you would like to see the BBL improve on, or things that could really be pushed forward over the coming seasons, years. Is there anything in your mind that sticks out?
For the BBL, I've always said, like, getting us good coverage on something, just getting us seen throughout the season. That always needs to, even if something falls through, just get us out there, just put us out there, just put the games out there and let's see what happens. Whether it's not the right deal or not, just put us out there. I've always said that there needs to be somewhere where it can be seen, for young players to see it, for general public to see it. That's always been probably my main thing. Just get it seen, get people to see it. I mean, it's a hard question to ask. I'd start with the TV one because I could go into so many.
Yeah.
But I'll start with the TV one because stuff that can come off that trickles down from that, it's endless really. Once it's out there and the views come, it's endless in terms of money. You know yourself, in terms of money and stuff that comes off of that. And as I've been in the offices when all these money conversations are had, like, it starts to filter through to my head now, and I'm seeing it on a bigger picture. So my main one would be just getting out there, getting the views, and then things will trickle down from that.
One of the sports that people consistently talk about, that's when we're sort of talking about basketball and where it could be, is netball. And obviously your wife, is she still playing now, or is she not playing anymore?
No, she doesn't play anymore. She's retired now.
And obviously that would have been one that you would have seen firsthand. And I think, their Sky deal, they ended up paying for the production, right? In return, and then they were able to then sell that inventory, the sponsorship, and obviously create a product that allowed the sport to grow off the back of having that TV deal. Do you think the All Stars Championship is something that is positive for the game? Surrey obviously won it. Was it 2018? 2018?
Yeah, 2018. Yeah,
that you won. So it's the winners obviously get it's 100,000 in split up between the teams. What was it, 25 for the winners?
I think we ended up with 25. Yeah.
When you talk land, I mean, the crazy thing is, obviously it's an adapted version of the game, right? But you're on Sky, so there is the visibility there. But there are some gimmicks. Me personally, it's hard when I look at it, it's hard for me to knock it because it does invest money into the game. It does give the game a level of visibility. But at the same time, I'm like, is that what we have to do to be able to get basketball some mainstream coverage? Like, do we have to create these golden buzzers and stupidly long shots and whatever else? Like, I'll be interested to hear what's your kind of take on that whole situation.
So for me, as a player, obviously, when it was announced, I was super happy because I was like, okay, cool. It's another trophy to win. There's money and there's more eyes on the game. Like, that was my initial thoughts. Obviously, and then the rules came out, and I was like, what's going on here now? This is a bit sketchy. But once I actually got on court and you get adjusted to the rules, it's just basketball at the end of the day. Once the golden buzzers burst, okay, it's double points. It adds a different challenge onto the game, but everybody was still out there playing basketball. Like, no one was really doing anything out of character. So I was all for that tournament. Like, even the years that we didn't do too well, I wanted us to win. So I was all for that tournament because, like you said, it brought a different audience. It brought money into the game as well, which most BBL teams needed anyway, and it added another trophy onto it added more competition onto it. So I was all for it. It brought matchroom sports into basketball as well. So, I mean, I don't see how it could have affected the BBL negatively or affected the game negatively. So even though we don't know what's going to happen with it, if it's gone or not, if it's coming or not, or if they've pulled out on it. But it being there, it helped throughout those years because we were on a major platform. We was on Sky and it was a major platform. I was going random places and I had people just coming up to me saying, "Oh, you play basketball? I saw you on Sky, like Sky Sports the other day." And I was like, "Oh yeah." That was the year we won, obviously, because we got the most airtime. And so for me, that was a massive, because I'm like, first of all, I'm like, damn, this guy, he's randomly spotted me on the street, didn't know, like, it's not like he spotted me because he was like, "Oh, that's Tayo." He was just like, "Oh, I saw you on TV because I flicked through and I was watching the basketball." So I mean, that was a massive, like, so is that guy now a basketball fan? But he knows about basketball through that. So I don't see. I think more stuff like that would help build. Obviously, it's going to take a while, but would help build basketball and just get more eyes on it and more. And who knows, another investor could see that tournament and think, "Oh, that's a good idea," and throw money. It's more eyes, I feel, is the better.
I was going to ask that. I don't feel there's been any official confirmation that it was cancelled this year, and it was originally scheduled for this year. So I'm assuming, there's obviously difficulties around coronavirus and everything else. But is that the general consensus at the moment? It could still happen, but it's kind of unknown what's going on.
I haven't heard anything from them as of for this year, so I'm not sure what's going to be going on. But I would presume with the corona virus going on, I'm not sure how it would run and how it would be beneficial for everybody. So, because they were big on ticket sales as well, that was a massive thing for them. So I would be doubtful if it would run this year, but that's just my opinion. I don't have any inside knowledge or anything like that.
I mean, how mad is all this coronavirus stuff? Like, take us back to last season when you started realizing that the season could end up getting cancelled. Like, where were you when you kind of found out that it was a potential option? Do you think that the trophy final should have gone ahead? Because obviously there's a lot of controversy around that. They kind of managed to get it done. Like, yeah, like, I'd be interested to kind of hear your thoughts around it all.
So where was I? I remember the first time I got a little bit nervous. We was actually in Glasgow, and I remember I was sitting down watching the TV. I think this was around February, and I was a little bit nervous. I was watching the TV. We was in the hotel. I think after we played the Rocks, and I was watching the TV, and I was watching them build that massive hospital in I think it was Wuhan or somewhere in China, and I was like, "Oh, this is getting kind of serious," but I still put it back to the back of my mind. Then fast forward to April, and it just all exploded, and I'm getting my teammates saying, "Yeah, we want to go home. Like, it's before everything closes, we want to go home." The BBL's not hadn't said what was going on until later on. So I've never seen anything like it before in my years of playing. In terms of the final, I just wanted everybody to be safe. I just wanted everybody to be safe. I think that in those kind of situations, like player safety, player health should always go first. And I know I looked on Twitter. I'm not a massive one to throw my opinions out on Twitter. I try to stay quite even keel. But I did see on Twitter and people were complaining like, was the players' safety put first, or were the BBL out to just get the money and run? And I understand it from both perspectives. I mean, if you put an event on and that event will bring you in majority of your income, well, a lot of your income for the season, I understand it. But from my point of view, I was high on player safety because I mean it's invaluable. There's no price on it. But I also got to shout out both teams because it was a really good game, and they both teams went out there and put on a good show. Despite what was going on, both teams put on a good show, and it was a really good final, especially with the storyline behind it all. It was a super final. So to summarize, it's hard. Would I have played if I was in the situation? Yes, because I'm a competitor and that's what I do, and that's a chance for me to win a trophy. But looking back on it, was it the right decision to have the final? I would hate to see if something broke out there, and I would hate to see that. So from stepping back and looking at it, I would probably say, like, let's put the safety of the players first, which I would like to see done more as well in the BBL. I would just like to see, I don't know what you would call it, but some sort of care package, something to say, okay, you guys play in our league. Let's take care of you. It could be anything from, I've had conversations with a lot of the captains as well about player associations and stuff like that. But it gets to a point and then it just stops because there isn't any outside help. So it's difficult for 12 captains or whatever, 9 captains to get together. And there's different factors involved in running an organization like that. It would have to be money coming from the players, and it's tough to ask for players to give a certain amount of their paycheck when they might not be earning loads. So it's just there's just so many. But I would like in the future, if I can do anything, I would like to see something for the players in our league, because I don't feel like there's anything for the players. And you did ask me before, that's one thing I had on my mind as well, about what can the BBL do as well. And I said TV. I really would love to see them put not just the players first, but put the players out there more. Like, I feel like sometimes they tend to, it's just vague in some of the things they do. Like if you're promoting something, put the players as the face of it, so people can relate to it. I just it's tough to explain, but let's just promote the players. I'm not going to say let's promote British players, but let's just promote the players that are set on those teams and push them forward as the product, rather than push, it sounds bad, but rather than push the BBL as a whole as a product, because it's easier to push players, individual players or a group of players as a product and sell that, and then have it trickle down into, okay, this is where they play and this is, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but those are just my views. And
you know what, like all of this stuff, and this was actually on my to ask list. All of this stuff could be driven by a players' union, you know, and we hear it all the time. Like, and you know, so many guys will say there needs to be a union, but and I've had conversations even this summer. Actually, I've had conversations with 2 different players. one in the BBL, one in GB International, who've both said they're looking into it and trying to set up a union, because that is like, as we've just seen, especially in the NBA, with the Black Lives Matter movement, the players have all the power ultimately, and if it's just about being able to, as it is the case with any workers' union, it's about getting everyone on the same page and trying to bring together the individuals into a collective, because that that will allow you to put stipulations in place. I know Kieran Achara was obviously very vocal about it, and I think he still is. But and the things he was speaking about was about physio staff, rehab, prehab, medical care, insurance, like all of that stuff.
Which all should be standard.
100%.
Which all should be standard if you're an athlete playing in the highest league in your country. But it's not. I don't feel like it's anybody's fault really. I just feel like there's a lot of hurdles we're coming up to try and get to that final point of having that union. I hope it gets there.
Sorry, I listened to Mark Robinson on a podcast, and he was involved obviously with the old players' union back in the day, and he was saying that I don't know whether it was his friend or they had some type of connection to a lawyer, and basically that allowed it to sort of be driven very much with the correct protocols and with sort of having the legal punch behind them to give them some credibility and sort of know what they're doing. So yeah, I mean, maybe that's an option. But I do think, like, when I think about if we're talking about a union on the side of the BBL, like, you're one of the first people that comes to mind as someone that would be very good to be involved with that and sort of at a higher level on the organisation side, because, like you're saying, your role at the Scorchers right now is essentially to be that liaison between the players and the management. You've been and seen it all over the last decade plus in the BBL. You've got relationships with players, all up and down the league. Maybe that is a task on the to-do list. It'd be interesting. I kind of asked, like, we spoke about sort of the coronavirus, but we've seen how it's impacted sports across the world, and we've seen stories from various different European leagues about budgets being slashed, sponsorship budgets, obviously TV deals potentially being reviewed because commitments aren't able to be made. Obviously, because you're not allowed to sell tickets or have as many fans there, you're not selling as many tickets, so revenues are down. When you look at the impact on the league this coming season, based on kind of, I guess, what you know at Surrey and your conversation you've had with other players across the league, do you see it having a big impact? Do you think the budgets are going to be down significantly? Do you see the league starting on their proposed start date, October, first week of October? Do you see that all happening? Because we've seen at the start of all of this, it was very much multiple people said if we can't have fans, it's completely non-viable. Like, the league can't run without fans. Like, how do you see that playing out? What's your kind of your anticipation for the coming season?
Well, it's definitely going to have an effect on the season. It's such a massive, it's a massive thing. There's no way it cannot affect the season, and I think it already has in terms of, if you look at the signings, players that again, like we talked about before, that may have taken contracts overseas, are staying home. I think the COVID has something to do with that as well. I think it's gonna be a hard season for for a lot of the teams, especially at the start, because if we can't get the BBL, there's no way it's going to work without the bums on seats. I can't see it working without the bums on seats, especially with the teams that own their own arenas as well. So they've made that massive jump to get their own arenas, and now this has happened. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. If we look at the, I know Glasgow are having some difficulties as well. So there's no way. It's definitely going to shake up the league a little bit. In terms of the product that's going to be put on the floor, I don't think it's going to have an effect on that, because if you look at most of the teams already, most of them are in training already. Most of them have got majority of their players already down and on the ground. But I do think from the finance point of it, I do think it can have an effect. We just have to wait and see what the government's going to say about spectators in the arenas up to the start date. So I guess that's what it all falls down to. If we can get numbers in, I think everything will be fine. I think the teams that can't will have to wait a little bit later to play some of their home games, is what I'm hearing. So it's already having an effect. So it's definitely going to have an effect, I think, all the way through the season. So, and I think it's going to be a different season to any other in terms of that. So I think we just have to wait and see until everything pans out.
How was the lockdown personally for you?
Um, for me, it was good. I've got a growing family, so it gave me the opportunity to just to sit down for a while. It wasn't very long because I'm not good at doing that. I need to be active, so I was probably in the house for about, I want to say, maybe 3 weeks at the beginning. And then I had to get out and I had to get active. I was out running and doing stuff. But it was good. It was a time to reflect on stuff, to reach out to people and make new relationships. And it was good. It was good. I got into some other stuff as well, a little bit of boxing and stuff. So I tried to keep myself in shape. And yeah, it was a good time. I've got 3 kids, so I was mainly occupied by them at home. So yeah, it was a good time. I think sometimes you need a bit of that, just sit down and chill for a bit and take everything in. And I think that's what lockdown allowed me to do. So
Do you think we're going to see a lot of players this season being a little bit, especially at the start of the season, being a little bit more off than usual, just from having perhaps more of an extended break and a shortened season last year?
um, yeah, I think maybe the first few games might be a little bit dusty. It might be a little bit rough. But I think once we get in the heat of competition, I think everything will flow fine. If you look at the signings that people have made and the teams that people are putting together this year in the BBL, there's not no shabby teams going on or anything like that. So I think the level of competition will be at where it was when we left off. And if you look around at most of the majority of the players were doing what they had to keep up to scratch. I mean, the good players, I guess, were doing what they had to keep up to scratch, whether it was playing outdoors, whether it was finding your local hoop outside. It doesn't matter what it was. Players were doing what they could to try and keep up to scratch and keep up to date. And so, um, I think the first bit of it might be a bit sketchy, just getting back into the flow of it, especially if we go straight back into having all the fans back in as well, because it will be a period of time where we haven't played in front of large crowds. So especially if we're going back into the bright lights, it could be a bit helter, a bit hectic. But I think for the majority of it, hoop is hoop, so it will just get back to normal.
I've been loving the updates on the Surrey training bubble. Like, how's that been? Obviously, you've had a lot of names coming in, a lot of guys there. Can you kind of talk about what it's been like, sort of the environment and sort of going up against various different guys?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, it was our opportunity to get back into on court. And Creon came up with the idea of let's just fully go into it and let's fully get guys in and let's just hoop. So we was hooping Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Tuesday and Thursdays was more skill orientated, and we do drills and stuff like that. And you know what it's like in the basketball scene. Once one picture went up, Creon's phone was inundated with messages of other people that wanted to join.
Because it was one of the few facilities that was open as well. There's still a lot of centres that were locked down at that point, right?
Yeah, and credit to our GM and the building as well. We had to go through you had to go through a lot of procedures just to get in the building, fill out forms, temperature checks, and all of that just to get back in the building. But because it was one of the only facilities, we got a lot of guys down, and a lot of people were. To be fair, like in the summer anyway, we get a few guys down, and we kind of have like open policy, and we get players from other teams, and because the way we see it and the way Creon sees it is like if we get a guy that's coming down that's at a high level, I get to play against that guy, and so if I'm playing for Creon, like it's going to help me. So we don't really turn anyone away. But the thing was, in the bubble, the numbers just got crazy. So that's when we had to start turning people away. So we had great competition there, and we had like a solid, I want to say 2, maybe a bit 3 weeks of getting at it and going up and down, and it just became a thing. Creon had a little idea, and we just rolled with it. It became a thing. Nicknamed it the bubble, and it became a thing. Shout out to Tom as well, because Tom, our social media guy, he does a great job of like putting it all out there, and it got out there, and then everyone came pretty much.
Definitely, big shout out to Tom Bonnet. He's doing a great job, and I think it's clear to me that guys like him. Obviously, Joe Pinchin's the most prominent of the lot, who's obviously now in Chicago, but it's clear that the asset they are to teams in terms of building the exposure for the players, building exposure for the team, and letting people know what's going on, because it does give us insight, which I think for teams that don't have someone like that doing that role, it's quite the difference is obvious, So I've got to ask the biggest name, and we've obviously seen him floating around the Scorchers for a few years now, is Joel Freeland. Like, what's the latest on Joel? Is there any chance that we're ever going to see him suit up in the BBL? I'm sure there are plenty of people that are trying to recruit him. Is there any chance that we could see him take an ownership stake? That's what I've kind of always thought potentially might happen. But yeah, I'd be interested to kind of hear your take on that whole situation.
It's interesting. I don't know. I haven't been told not to talk about this, so I don't know. I don't know where I stand with this actually. In terms of Joel, so he's from the area, so that's his first connection. He's from the area. He lives about 15 minutes away from me, so he's from the area. He's around. In terms of playing, I think his playing days are over with, if I can say that. You're gonna have to get him on here on one of the podcasts.
Man, I've been trying. If you can sort that out for me, then I'll be forever grateful. Speak to him, because I'll get my DMs aired, man. I'm not even gonna lie. Like I've shot my shot and been shot down. So but yeah, he's been on the attempted list for a long time. So if you can make it happen, I'll be forever grateful.
I'll get him to talk. I'll get him to come and talk to you. I mean, he's a hard man to pin down because he's all over the world at different points of time. So, but from what I gather from him, our conversations we've had, and him being around the team, there's definitely different options he's looking at with us. He's in the office. He's on the court. So I don't know really how much I can say. I don't know if I can. I don't know. So let me just say, he's in the office, he's on the court. In terms of playing, no, I can definitely say that. I don't think he'll be suiting up for us. So I don't know if that's breaking news and it's going to go viral now that Tayo said he's not playing, but I said it, so it's done. Okay.
But there are conversations happening.
Yeah, our conversations happening. He's upstairs, he's in the office, he's on the court. And yeah, he's just a great guy to have around. Anytime you have someone of his caliber that has played at that kind of level and understands the game that he does, and he's just, even besides basketball, he's just a great guy to have around. And he's been throughout last seasons, he's been supportive of all the guys that we've had in. He's been throwing out tips. He knows the game. He helps out in different ways he can. And we obviously, us being an organisation, we jumped on that, and we're going to see what happens with him in terms of a role coming up or whatever he's going to do. We'll see what happens.
Awesome, big time. I appreciate you tiptoeing around it, but giving us some information. So yeah, no, that's great.
I don't want to be breaking headlines.
Yeah, of course. No, I understand. So the other advantage, obviously, playing at home is that you will get opportunities that you wouldn't get abroad. When you go abroad, you would be a foreign player, likely only there for 1 year, and as a result of that, it's hard to sort of build those roots, as we've kind of discussed. The brand that you have obviously become involved with is Puma. I need to ask you, how did that come about? Like, obviously, Puma, as far as I'm aware, like, are not really doing a lot in the UK basketball-wise outside of you. So you're gonna have to tell me what is the situation with Puma? Like, how has that come about?
It's
Yeah,
hard because I want them to be involved in British basketball. I really want them to come in and just bless us with but it's hard because they're such a massive organization. We're just not on their
radar. Yeah,
it's just so hard. So the conversations I have with them, they're always nice and they're always polite and they're great people. The people that I've got in contact with and I've built a relationship with over the last, I want to say, 3 years now, they've been supporting me. Like they're all great people, and I'd say like, let's do this or come to the BBL final. But the people that we're talking about, they're going to have meetings at Jay-Z's house, and so it's hard for me to. It's just the levels that it's so difficult.
yeah,
It just came about. I have well, obviously being based in the UK is a lot easier. You meet a lot of people, so I have a friend that works for Rock Nation, and obviously Rock Nation are very heavily affiliated with Puma. So I just reached out to him. He put me in contact with someone else, and that's just how the ball started rolling. And obviously, I've got like I wouldn't say a heavy following on social media, but I've got a core following on social media, and they like that. So they've just been supporting me in terms of on-court stuff, off-court stuff, anything I really need. They've just been supporting me massively. And I'm forever grateful for that because they don't need to do that. It's just become a good relationship over the last 3 years. In terms, I keep throwing stuff at them in terms of let's do this, let's do that. But again, it's such a big organization, and they've got so many other things that headline them. Like it's tough for them to. It's tough for me to get a seat at the table. Basically, that's the gist of it because it's such a massive, and they are heavily involved on the American side of the basketball thing. So they're fully invested in that. So for them to now come down to a smaller country, to a smaller market, everything is small when we're talking about the BBL in terms of Puma. So I've just been lucky enough to be in good connections with some people over there, and if they're listening, thank you. I'm forever grateful for that.
How many other players are hitting you up for a bring in now?
Everybody. I mean,
bet. I know
everybody, and people think it's just so easy that I can't explain it. People just think it's so easy that I can just make one phone call and then boom, they're the next guy. It just doesn't work like that in the industry, and I don't really know how to explain it to people. So a lot of people out there probably think I'm like an arsehole and I'm taking everything, but it just doesn't work like that. So It's hard for. I know the other guys that have had Nike deals will know that I'm talking about because there was a period of time everyone was getting those Nike deals. So I know those guys will know what I'm talking about because they probably had people hitting them up and saying, "Oh, can I get this?" or "Can you do this?" or "Can I be on?" It just doesn't work like that. So it's hard for me to tell people. For me to tell people that. So normally I just say when someone asks, I'll just say, yeah, I'll see what I can do, and then nothing really happens because that's just how it works.
How much do you like? Do you have any other sort of deals or? Oh, have I lost you? You've just frozen. Oh no, you're back. How many other deals do you have? Do you have any other deals like brand deals or ambassador deals going on? Like, and when you're talking about sort of how they come back, do you find that it's a situation where you very much got to hustle for them yourself? Like, you know, before the Puma situation, were you very much like hitting people up, trying to make connections, build those bridges?
That's a good question. So I had there was a period of time, I think it was like my second year at Surrey, where I was like, okay, cool. I'm just going to use my social media platform and I'm going to hit at as many people as I can, as many products as I can, and try and see what kind of feedback I do get from them. And it's just hit and miss. Like sometimes you can just get someone that might love basketball and might just hit you back and say, yeah, I'll do this, I can do this, and you can do this. Or sometimes you'll just get air. Like they won't even reply to the message. So it's just hit and miss. But I do think players like should try and take it upon themselves to reach out to different brands, different organizations, and see what they can do. Because I did take a good solid year to just hit up different organizations, products I like, products I would use, and say, look, this is what I do. This is the platform I have. I like your products. Like, what are the chances? Do you know what I mean? Along those kind of lines. And you do get people coming back in a positive manner. But again, you're going to take some L's. That's just how it is. So I think at the moment, I've got quite a few. So I've got a couple snack companies. I've got underwear. Then I've got the Puma. And then on the other side of it as well, I did reach out to some charities as well that I wanted to get involved with. So that was another thing that I used my social media platform to. So I'm ambassador to a few charities that are close to me, close to my heart as well. So that's
do you want to shout them out?
Centrepoint. That's Centrepoint. They're a charity for young homeless people between the age of, I think, 13 to 20 something, and they just help house homeless people that are going through a rough time. So yeah, shout out to them. So I just think if you can be proactive, it's difficult because in this level of basketball that we're at a higher level, you would have your agent do all these things. But I think at this level that we're at, you're not going to get, your agent's not going to do that because he's got 50 other players as well. So he's not going to be hitting up different organizations and different companies to get you products or to get you, because it makes life a lot easier if you're playing and you're getting your shoes for free, or you're getting your protein shakes for free, or you're getting your training gear for free. It just makes stuff easier, and it can take off the load of you can use your salary for other things. So it just helps. So I do think players, I know some do, but I would advise, like, just reach out. Like, what's the worst that can happen? They won't reply. It doesn't take it won't, well, it shouldn't hit your ego. So if they don't reply, they don't reply. Some do reply, some don't. That's just how it is. But if you can reach out, tell them about yourself a little bit, and just see what happens and come back. And I've been fortunate enough to have a few people even get in contact with me. So it's just the luck of the draw, really.
Do you feel like there's been a growth in the number of brands, sort of commercially, that are trying to get involved with British basketball, both the game and the players?
I think so. Because I think now it's easier to market things with social media. I think there's different avenues you can market things, and players can market things themselves. We don't need the BBL to market it for us, or our teams to market it for it. They can come straight to us, and we can put a post up, or we can put a story up, and it can be there. It might be a smaller market, but some companies are smaller, so they need that smaller market, or it could be location based. It could be anything. So I do think the more companies are reaching out to players through their social media, and I think it's a good thing. I think it helps players, and it helps the game as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's an interesting one with brands in the UK, 'cause, like you were saying, the levels of what they normally deal with compared to then coming into basketball, it's very, very different. And so, as much as I can see both sides of the coin. I can see it from the side of, like, if you're a Puma or a Nike or whatever, like, you're dealing on such a scale with other organisations. Why would you even bother with basketball? It's almost not even worth it, because it's never going to move the needle in any type of significant way for the business, for the bottom lines of the business. Yeah. On the flip side of that, it's so cheap because it isn't that well commercially developed. For what is pocket change for these brands, they could own the entire sport. Like, if a Nike or whoever wanted to come in and say, do you know what, like, we want to own basketball in the UK, and we're gonna make this a long-term investment, for what they'd spend on probably one single sponsorship activation, they could make a significant difference to the entire game, and in terms of growing the profile of the game and everything else. And I think the sport has really struggled because of a lack of big money coming in from commercial sponsors, and that's something that I'd love to see change. But I think it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation.
I think a lot of it. I think most of the conversations I've had with those people that are in those positions, it's always they're willing to do things, but what can they get in return? I think it needs, if that balance is found, I think then it becomes a viable option for them, even in terms of it's hard, even in terms of not even if it becomes a charitable thing, if they see that in some way it balances out, then it becomes viable for them. But it's so like you said, the market is so small, and with what they're dealing with as well on the other side of the world, other things that they're dealing with, other sports that they're dealing with, it's hard to then come to the table with such a niche and say, look, pump this in. But I'm hoping that at some point, like it goes back to that TV thing as well, I'm hoping that at some point they see the brand of British basketball as an entirety, as a package, and something will happen, and something, it only takes one guy to have that interest and to push it through. Yeah. And and it will take over.
I do think that TV deal is massively important. If you that's the other thing, is that at one point it was looking like, I felt like because of the fact that so many sports were being cancelled or weren't able to play at the same level, it was almost an opportunity that didn't normally exist for the sport to be able to get in front of eyeballs that aren't normally there. Have you heard any murmurs about a potential TV deal this year? I know there has been some swirlings around the lines in Europe and whether or not they're going to get some TV coverage here. But for the actual regular season, what's your take on that? Have you heard anything?
I haven't heard anything to date. I heard something earlier on in the summer, but I wasn't too sure how concrete it is. And now it just sounds like it was just a whisper. But I hope that the people that are behind the scenes are pushing that agenda and trying to get us seen. But I don't know. It seems like we're always looking for a better deal when sometimes we just need to take the deal that's on the table. So I don't know, because I haven't been in those conversations with where the deal's on the table, so I don't really know the full scope of it. But I just hope and pray that we can just get seen and get back on screens again.
So I don't want to finish this before going into some of the early years stuff. So you started out Ealing Tornadoes, which is obviously Jack Majewski's club, who we had on the podcast recently. Can you? How did you first end up playing? Like, go into that with us.
So way back, I basically got invited by one of my friends to join a team, and at that time, I don't think they were actually. It was a small team. It was actually Slough Tornadoes, and I think it was then a few years later that they then got picked up by Jack and his crew, and then merged and became like London United, Ealing Tornadoes, something like that. It was all confusing to me at the time. Anyway,
he's always had London United, hasn't he? It's always London United.
So we basically had to put that name on top of Ealing Tornadoes, Slough Tornadoes. And that's basically the first team I played for. And to be honest, I wasn't very good at the time. I definitely wasn't very good. I remember my first game playing and fouling out in probably like the second quarter. Which because it just wasn't very good. And then from then, we played in the under-18s South Conference, and we ended up winning that South Conference. And then I was too old, so I left, but then they got promoted to the Premier Conference. So after that, around that time, I didn't really see it getting to where it is now. I didn't really think that I you're young, so I didn't really see it saying this could be a profession. And obviously, I didn't really see that many British basketball players around me. So I mean, I had the likes of like around that time it was like Steve Veer, Waleed, Pete Depish, all used to play on the senior team, and they used to play out of Brunel. So I used to go to their games and watch and be like, oh, that's so cool. Like, hopefully I can do that. But I never really, even still at that time, I never really associated that with professional basketball at the time. It seems weird, but it just because in my mind as a kid, like professional sports athlete was, I don't know, Ronaldo and like those guys back in. So that's what I had. So I couldn't really put it on to the professional side until I really got a little bit older. So from then, so I played for London Towers, and at that time, I was just coming into the under-20 league, but then they ended up scrapping the under-20 league just as I was about to go into it. So I ended up playing. I think I played Division 3 for London Towers. Played there for a few months, and then I tried to go to the States. I went up to the States for a period of time. Got pushed around different tryouts at different schools, different universities. Ended up getting an offer at Temple University, but again I was very raw. They saw talent in me. I was very raw, so they offered me a half scholarship. And for international student, it was like 30 grand. So I was like, Mum, can you pay 15 grand? She was like, no. So I came home. So that's how that dream ended.
Yeah.
Came back home, just worked on my game a lot. And then obviously I'd had been to like every Steve Bucknall camp. Like as the years have gone, I'd been to every Steve Bucknall camp. So me and Steve had like a good relationship. He ended up being the coach of London Cabals at the time, and I was very raw at the time when he took me on. And he just knew that I was raw, but he knew I had some sort of skill level, some sort of ability. So he was like, "Look, it's going to be crazy for you, but come and play the BBL." And I was like, "What, the BBL?" So he took me over, played the BBL. In terms of team, we didn't have a great season, but in terms of myself as an individual, I had a pretty good season because it made me realize I could play at that level.
Yeah.
And I was only, 18 turning 19, 18, 19, maybe 20.
Yes, this was the 2007, 2008 season. That was the first year, right? Yeah. The other thing, before we go too far on the timeline, obviously amongst all of this, you, I think, are probably the only player, or one of the few players that's still playing at a high level that I've actually played with. Do you remember the Friday night scrimmages at Brunel?
Yes,
I
love those, man.
Yeah.
I love those. And those, like, it's weird because those, like, going to all those scrimmages around London, they really shaped me as a basketball player because I was always out of my depth. I was always out of my element. I was playing with guys that are a lot older than me, guys that would talk a lot of trash, guys that like wouldn't respect anything that I said because I was just a skinny like young kid that just came and showed up and played. But like they really shaped like how I viewed basketball and how I played basketball and how I switched from like being myself and then getting on court and being a basketball player. So yeah, I do. I love those scrimmages at Brunel and
I got three anecdotes from those scrimmages, right? So just to give people to context, when I was at Brunel, I was the chairman of the basketball club, and so we'd have, as a money-making thing for the club, we'd have scrimmages where we'd charge a couple of quid. Obviously, a bunch of people would show up and not pay. Tayo was probably one of them.
Yeah, definitely.
And so yeah, we'd run these scrimmages, and on Friday night it would end up being half decent. And so I've got three really vivid memories of you at these scrimmages playing with you. Like I've got one. On a fast break, we were on the same team, and it was just me and you and one defender, and I went behind my back to you off the bounce, and you thought I was going to throw it off the glass, and so it was basically ended up being a turnover, and I don't know why I remember that so clearly, but I remember it really clearly, and then we just had a laugh about it, and you were just like, why don't you throw it off the glass? I was like, I thought it was this, and then another one, which I don't even know why I feel the need to say this, but I feel like there was one time where you tried to dunk on me and I blocked it. It's like my little claim to fame that I blocked Tayo one time at a Friday night scrimmage. And then the third one, which actually looking back on now is super nice, was when we was outside. I think after it had finished, and you were actually telling me that you were kind of pursuing this dream of being a professional basketball player and you wanted to be a pro. Because I remember thinking at the time, there's no flipping way that you're going to be a pro. Like, I just remember thinking, like, I can't see it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then to see sort of where you were then, where, like you were saying, you were very much a raw athlete, where you had raw talent, but actually you hadn't put it all together yet. And now, seeing what you've done over the last 15 years, and obviously, arguably, one of the best British players in the BBL and one of the most consistent performers over the last 5-10 years. If you look at your numbers as well, it's incredible to see, and I think it's a super nice story. So yeah. Anyway, that was just a little trip down memory lane for me. I was really excited to have you on just to be able to talk about those Friday night scrimmages. So the other thing, you ended up in Spain, right? Was that at Canaries Basketball Academy?
Yeah, so there was a year, obviously, another shout out to Midnight Madness and Namo and all those guys out there. There was a year we did Midnight Madness, and I think I had won Player of the Summer or something along MVP, something along those. And the prize was to go and spend a year at Gran Canaria Academy. So that's how I ended up going there. So I was there for a whole year, and that was, to be honest, that was one of the turning points in my life as well, because that was such a challenge, and I was so out of my element, and it was the first time I've been totally immersed. Because in the UK, if you're playing junior basketball, you're okay. You're not fully immersed in it. Like I would go to college or university, whatever, and I wasn't totally immersed in it. But once I got out there, you're totally immersed in it. It becomes something different. And because I didn't go to college in the States, I hadn't had anything similar to that. So it's basically a version of that. I even think it's amped up a little bit compared to what they're doing in the States. And we're up in the morning at 6:30 and we're practicing, and we're doing lessons in between, and 3 practices a day, and we're running sand dunes and we're swimming, and I was totally immersed in basketball, like fully. And it was one of the points where I was like, okay, if I can get through this, then I can probably do something in basketball. Because I looked to my left, I looked to my right, and people were dropping like flies when we was over there. So it was one of the turning points in my basketball life, where I was like, okay, if I can push through and get through this, I know I can pretty much play basketball and do it anywhere. And it really elevated my game, because if you're playing basketball that much and at that level, and you're being held to that kind of standard, and I was really taught different things about the game from being in Spain, different ways to play, and it really opened up my eyes a lot. So that was one of the turning points for me, and I'm forever grateful for that opportunity from Midnight Madness and from Namo and them.
So then you come home and you ended up signing for Guildford. Like, in your head, were you thinking, I'm going to sign in the BBL and try and carve out a career there, or were you thinking in your head, I want to try and forge a path in Europe?
So off the back of coming out of from Spain, I had a few different options, but none of them really. It was a weird time, because again, I was still in that phase of learning and becoming a player, and coming out of there, like I was over there with a lot of great players. I mean, Joel was out there, Menelik Watson was out there, Ashley was out there. Like, some of the great players have gone through there, and some players that are not even British, that are European players that are playing in top leagues of Europe have come through there. So coming out of there, it was kind of like, okay, so if I'm not doing what these guys are doing, then what is my next option? So I had a few options to go and play over in Spain and be in one of the lower leagues, but I still didn't quite believe in myself at the time. So came home and I remember it like it was yesterday. I went to Notting Hill Carnival, and obviously knowing Mike Martin through from shout out to Mike Martin, by the way.
Yeah.
Knowing Mike Martin through Midnight Madness and that, he was like, why don't you see if you can come and play with Guildford? And I was like, I was still at that point. I wasn't sure in my ability, and I wasn't sure what I could do. I just knew I had to keep working, and that's how that opportunity arose. So I kind of jumped at that, and once I got into the Guildford Heat kind of system, and understood what it took to play at the BBL, I kind of, within the 2 years of being there, I kind of got really comfortable at, playing in the BBL, and understood what it took to be successful as well, and to keep a high standard. And I had great role models. I had Mike, I had Julius Joseph, I had great role models in terms of British players as well. Things they would do in their work ethic as well. So at that point, coming out of Spain, half of my mind was in Europe and going to play in Europe, but I had doubts about my ability as well. Because remember, again, I only picked up a basketball when I was like 17, 18, probably about a year before I started playing with you is when I picked up a basketball. So I wasn't really sure. So along those periods of times, like, I could have gone and played in different areas, but again, like self-doubt and like not being ready, and a lot of things came into play. So
The other interesting thing about kind of your story is that, of course, the coach of Guildford was Creon, who's now obviously your current coach. Is almost like the whole thing has come full circle. When you talk about, I guess, Creon, your relationship with Creon and the impact that he's had on your career, kind of what would you say?
It's been massive, man. Creon's been like a mentor, in just like in all areas, in life and in basketball. He's such a well-grounded person. He's such a relatable person as well. Like and an honest person as well, which is kind of hard to find in the world as well. And I've known him for such a long time. I think I first met him was either when I was playing at Towers, because his son Calais was playing at Towers, or maybe at a Bucknall camp because he was coaching there. So we go back maybe like, I want to say maybe 15 plus years. So he's been a major factor. Even times when I wasn't playing for him, I'd still reach out to him when it came to decision making and advice. And he's just been a solid person to relate to and to ask advice for, and another good role model I've had like throughout my career as well.
So you did 3 years in Guildford. You had a season in London, and then of course I'm skipping over bits here because I'm aware of time. And then you did your year in France with Calais. When you look, that was the 4th division, was it? It was 4th division.
Yeah, it's 4th division. Yeah.
Obviously, you had a good season. Personally, you ended up an all-star that year. What made you decide to go abroad? Was that just an itch that you felt you needed to scratch? And then obviously going over to France, how was it compared to your expectations of it? And of course, you ended up ultimately coming back for the season after. Like, yeah, kind of. What's your take on that whole situation?
It's just like you said. I think it is an itch you have to scratch. I had to go over somewhere to see if I could play. If I was at a level where I could play overseas and be a product that they've brought in to boost whatever they're doing there. To see if I was that guy, and that year was really good for me. It really boosted my confidence. It really allowed me to know in my head that, okay, look, I can play at this level. If not, I can play at the higher level, because at the end of the season, the team wanted me to stay and come back for next year. But I wanted them to move up. They're a small team and they didn't have the budget to do that. So I wanted to move up. So that's the only reason why I didn't go back there. like you said, I was an all-star, so I had to come back actually in the summer to play the all-star game because the all-star game was out of season. So it was just a great experience for me, and I felt like I did need to get out and experience something else and see what it's like as to go to another country where you don't speak the language and do your trade. And obviously playing basketball, like everyone talks about it. Like if you're in the BBL, everyone will say to you, "Oh, have you never gone overseas?" So like over my years of playing at Guildford and London, at Cabals, like everyone would be like, "Oh, why don't you go overseas and play overseas?" So I was like, "Okay, everyone's saying it. Like, let me go and see what's going on." So managed to get a pretty decent contract, and I went over there and I had a great year, and I would have stayed out there. I think my style of playing as well suited the French game more than any other country I played in. So I had a great year out there, and like I said, I would have stayed out there if not that if not that the team just didn't want to go up. That was the only problem.
Do you feel like you've missed out on anything by not having more years abroad?
I think earlier on in my career I did, and I was always trying to scramble out and find good contracts overseas. And but I think now I look back at it, I think I definitely made the right decision because building roots somewhere is just it's priceless. You can't really it's just priceless. You can't. So it would have been a struggle for me to now come back at 33 and try and get a mortgage, and like it's just the things they don't tell you. It's crazy, the things they don't tell you about playing overseas and having no financial records to come back to the country. It's there's a lot of things they don't tell you about playing overseas. So but at the time I was trying to get contracts and trying to play it overseas. But looking back at it now, I'm happy with all the decisions I made. And I wouldn't really change anything.
Quickly looking ahead to this BBL season, obviously not all full rosters have been announced. Surrey is still in the process, but when you're talking about you guys, obviously you're bringing back Lavelle Cook, bringing back Skylar White. You signed Hassan. How do you feel the Surrey rosters coming together? What are your predictions on the coming season for how you guys will fare? And then I guess, what's your take on the rest of the league? Obviously, London Lions have been the talk of the summer. Plymouth are now making some noise, signing pretty much the London City Royals players from back season before last. So, kind of give us a season preview, both for the Surreys and the league.
I think in terms of us, I think the signs we've made so far are pretty solid. I think you'll struggle to find better scorers than the people we just signed. So I think we will be solid. I hate to predict and say like we'll be this and we'll do that because of my years of playing. I've noticed that can sometimes backfire. So I like to just say we're going to be solid. In terms of the other teams here, like London's team at the moment, like that's obviously the team to beat. Like even without playing the game, they've already put themselves in the firing line. And then obviously Plymouth, I'd say second to that, have obviously put themselves in the firing line. And it's great. It's great for them to bring that level of talent into the league, and for guys like me to see that and be like, okay, look, this is what we've got to do. This is what we've got to come up against. So now I know, looking into the season, like, look, there's no joke. There's no joke teams around here. We've really got to go in and be solid in what we're doing. And London made some great signings. I don't know how it will transfer over to the BBL in terms of who's going to play, and because obviously it's a bigger team for the European run, so I don't know who's going to be playing what, but and that doesn't really concern me that much either, because you can only play who's on the floor anyway. So, but in terms of us, I think we've had a pretty solid trajectory in what we've been doing. We've had some lapses in some years, but in terms of what we've had to work with, in terms of budget, in terms of fan base as well, I think we've been pretty solid in what we're doing. We're always first off looking to get some silverware, so that will be obviously definitely on our plate. I feel like the team that we're going to put out this year is going to be a very, very strong team. But you never know until you get out there in terms of the level of players in the BBL. So we'll just see where the chips fall. I'm very confident going into the season with just the signings that we've done already. And there's more signings to come, obviously. So we will see. I know London are going to be strong. Plymouth will be strong. Leicester have always been solid. Newcastle have always been solid. So we're not going into it thinking that because of COVID it's going to be like a free season or anything like that. We're going in and we're going to keep building on what we've been building and hopefully have a good season.
All right, some quick fire questions just to finish up. Starting with the best player that you've ever played against.
Played against?
Yes.
Played with? Played against?
Played against. And then we could do played with as well. Do both.
Funny you say that. Last summer I was playing with TJ Warren in North Carolina, so I'm going to say him because he's the first name that popped to mind and he's hot right now. So I'm going to say him. Yeah, I'll say him for now.
The best British junior player you've ever seen?
Junior player?
Yeah.
When I was coming up, I always remember Justin being on my radar as one of the top talents in London, if not in the UK. So I'm gonna shout him out and say Justin.
Best coach you've ever played for?
Creon, for sure.
I mean, he takes up a lot of your years, doesn't he? So
yeah, he does.
He wipes out a lot of other options you might have otherwise had.
Yeah.
And then the best British player you've played against or with?
You're trying to get me in trouble, man. There's too many to mention. Joel, Freeland, Andrew Lawrence, Ashley Hamilton, Matthew Bryan Manning, Luau Deng. The list goes on. There's too many to mention. If I missed you out, my bad, fellas.
Your favourite teammate?
I've had a lot of teammates. Man, that's a hard question as well. Man, you stumped me there. I can't, because if I'm going to say one guy, there's going to be like 10 other guys are going to hit me up.
You're going to sit on the fence.
I can't answer that one, yeah.
What is your favourite basketball memory?
Representing my country. Representing England's always good. Yeah, I'll say representing is probably been the highlight. Yeah.
And then your number one goal to achieve within basketball before you hang them up?
Someone else asked me this on the podcast before, and one of the things I would hope and I would like for like my legacy or my thing to do, like when I finish playing, is for guys to kind of see like the route I took and just know that that's an option. Like, if that makes sense to you, because I know there's obviously from the time when I was young, the options were play basketball, go to the States, go pro. Do you know what I mean? So just to leave like a different footprint, like a different avenue would be great. And if a guy can, I don't know, if in 10 years or like 15 years I'm watching a podcast like this and a guy said, oh yeah, I saw Tayo and he went this route. You know, that would be awesome to me. Like that would be like totally mind blowing to me. So that would be definitely be one of the things.
Perfect. That's a perfect place to leave it. Tayo, thank you so much. Good luck for the coming season, and I'm sure we will speak soon and cross paths very soon as well.
Definitely appreciate you. Thanks for having me on. Blessed to be on. So appreciate that.